The Executive Order number 2, which was signed off by the President, is very specific that we must work very closely with the Minister for Agriculture and the people in the agricultural sector to be able to step up our export potential and to attract foreign investment. As we grow local, we also attract the foreign investors. So we are conjoined at the hip with the Ministry of Agriculture in this agenda. But let me just quickly flag one or two things. The private sector is absolutely important for us to achieve growth in agriculture. It's absolutely essential. And I would like us, particularly those of us who are in government and those of us who are politicians, because that is where a lot of these manenos come from, we must not look at the private sector as an opposition. So when you're engaging with the private sector, don't look at them as an opposition and therefore in the process create unnecessary bureaucracy and hurdles because the mentality is that you want to frustrate the opposition. Let's look at the private sector as partners. That is what is going to really transform our engagements. I say so because we have seen times when the government sometimes assumes they can do better than the private sector in certain areas, and we land into difficulty. And there are many examples. I had the opportunity at one time to serve as the Minister for Agriculture. My colleague is now there. And when there was need to bridge the food deficit gap through the cereal board, and you don't have the exchequer funds, but sometimes you'd have a constituency in government arguing that it must be government to handle this. My experience was that if you prepared and gave a transparent proposal, levelized the field, the private sector used to fill that gap without any difficulty and without an additional cost to the exchequer. So sometimes when we need to look at the deficits around us in terms of essential commodities that have a deficit, I think if we work carefully with the private sector, if it is in the import program, the private sector can fill that gap and help the government, because maintaining all these talks and expecting the exchequer to pay for it translates into higher taxes eventually for the ordinary citizen. So my plea is that we need to really embrace the private sector as partners and not look at them as an opposition wing. This is the Kenyan private sector, and we should look at them as partners, and we should work towards making them even better partners. On the flip side, let me also appeal to the private sector. Sometimes this challenge is not just completely misguided. Some of these challenges are also because the integrity of the private sector is lacking. For people to have confidence in that private sector, the private sector must also espouse integrity in the process. There's nothing wrong in having a profit motive. But when the profit motive turns into greed, then that is where the problem arises. It has to be balanced. Obtain your profits, but let it not be greed. If, on the other hand, you're the private sector and you're given an opportunity, perhaps to bridge a certain gap, whether it is rice or edible oil, for heaven's sake, on your part, have integrity and bring in things that fit the bill and the standards. Because if it is human consumption, or if it is something for our livestock, or if it is something that is fertilizer-based, please, on your part, also do it with integrity so that you can build confidence in the farmers, in the people in Kenya, in the consumers, that you are a responsible private sector. So this is absolutely essential. It cuts both ways. Those in the public sector respect the private sector, and those in the private sector, please earn the respect by doing what is right, ethically. And that way, I think we shall be able to build our agricultural sector tremendously. Digitization of agricultural value chains presents a significant opportunity to improve efficiency and increase transparency. By leveraging technology, we enhance traceability, reduce transaction costs, and improve access to finance for smallholder farmers and other value chain actors. We must work to ensure that all actors in the value chain, from farmers through processors to consumers, have access to digital tools and platforms needed to participate in the transformation and growth of the sector. The private sector has a critical role to play in financing agriculture. Hence, we are obliged to create an enabling environment for private sector investments. This includes improving the regulatory framework, reducing bureaucracy, and increasing access to credit. We must promote public-private partnerships to leverage the strengths of both sectors and achieve shared goals. The role of the private sector is not limited to financing and investment. It is a critical component in addressing development challenges through its contributions in many areas. These include economic growth, jobs, poverty reduction, service delivery, food security, climate change mitigation, and environmental sustainability. Fintechs, banks, and other financial institutions can work together to provide innovative financial solutions for small-scale farmers by leveraging mobile technology and alternative data sources. We can improve access to credit and other financial services for smallholder farmers who have traditionally been underserved by the traditional formal financial sector. Under this tech-driven new push, we must also promote financial literacy and capacity building to ensure that farmers are empowered to make informed financial decisions. Distinguished participants, as we may all be aware, the financing ecosystem has barely scratched the surface when it comes to the development of demand-driven agricultural financing solutions. Among the challenges faced are managing risks, high transaction costs in dealing with a large number of small farmers, and micro, small, and medium enterprises. Lack of expertise to backstop agricultural loan portfolios, and ineffective policies for mobilizing private sector capital for the sector. As you are all aware, it's no longer news. It's in the public domain. Foreign or diaspora remittances have now exceeded our earnings, our foreign exchange earnings. The diaspora remittances were about $4.2 billion last year. They have exceeded coffee, they have exceeded tea, they have exceeded horticulture. But in terms of a long-term strategy, are we really going to say that our resilience should be dependent on diaspora remittances? So this is a challenge. How do we get back the agricultural sector? How do we get back the tea? How do we get back the coffee? How do we get back the floriculture and horticulture to be at the top so that we can diversify and actually strengthen our economic base even more? So I hope the outcome of this conference will provide some answers in this particular area. At the same time, please also reflect on how we can work together with the private sector. The government of Kenya, for instance, signed the EPA, the European Partnership Agreement, giving us quota-free and duty-free or tariff-free access to 27 countries in the European Union. How do we bring that down to the farmer? How do we really domesticate what the government of Kenya executed? Help us so that we unbundle these agreements so that the ordinary farmer and the private sector in Kenya can literally seize the opportunity and leapfrog our deficiencies to greater inflows for the people of Kenya. So in your conversation, please also give some due consideration that how are we going to maximize on these very important agreements that we have executed between us and our partners. Kenya is now ready for a remodeled financing mechanism that promises better days for the agricultural sector. Indeed, our country's fourth medium-term plan, 2023 to 2028, which was officially launched last week by His Excellency President William Ruto, outlines the key policies, programs, and projects that the government plans to implement to support growth and transformation of this important sector of our economy. Among the plan's priority projects is the Agricultural and Rural Financial Inclusion Project, which aims to enhance access, efficiency, and stability of agricultural and rural finance. This intervention will facilitate transformation of agriculture into a modern, innovative, and commercially oriented sector. The theme of this conference is apt and timely in positioning our country for resilient agricultural enterprises. I am happy to note that among the issues you will deliberate and focus on over the next 2 days are government priorities for agricultural progression and identifying areas where investment is needed, financing transformation and government incentives and frameworks, de-risking investment in agriculture, technologies and digitalization and research, private sector involvement and needs of SMEs and financial institutions, leading from the front and honoring commitments. I reiterate the government's commitment to creating an enabling environment for financing and investment in agriculture. I am certain that working together, we will unlock the full potential of Kenya's agriculture sector and achieve our shared goals of food security, economic growth, and sustainable development. I look forward to actionable outcomes from all stakeholders in this conference. Meanwhile, I assure you that my office will offer the necessary support in delivering the recommendations and solutions you propose. I assure you also that the Kenya government will support the creation of any framework that will not only contribute to growth of this important sector of our economy, but is also geared to benefiting Kenyans at the bottom of the pyramid. I thank you all and wish you fruitful deliberations for the next 2 days. It is now my pleasure to declare this conference officially open. Thank you. It is a great honor to address this conference on financing agriculture sustainability in Kenya. Allow me to begin by thanking the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development and Rotuba Limited for organizing this important event. I also take this opportunity to reaffirm the government's commitment to supporting agriculture and validate the theme for this conference, positioning Kenya for resilient agricultural enterprises. Note that we have a choice in this because this sector is a key driver of our country's growth and socio-economic development. Indeed, agricultural transformation is a key pillar of our government bottom-up economic transformation agenda, BETA. Since independence, the sector has moved from subsistence farming towards commercialization. Today, it contributes significantly to our GDP, employs the majority of our population, and plays a critical role in ensuring food and nutritional security. Furthermore, agriculture is one of the main foreign exchange earners and is a source of income and livelihoods for the majority of Kenyans. Dear delegates, for these reasons, our outlook is futuristic in matters agriculture. We recognize that we must strengthen international relations to boost regional and global trade. As the Cabinet Secretary in charge of Foreign and Diaspora Affairs, my priority is to work with our international partners to expand market access for Kenyan agricultural products and promote investment in the sector. We are, however, also looking within our continent to foster agricultural trade. Africa has immense potential to feed itself and become a major player in global agricultural markets. We must therefore work together to break down trade barriers and promote regional integration to unlock this potential. To achieve this, investment support is required to facilitate agricultural production and trade. We must invest in infrastructure, such as rural access roads, storage facilities, and irrigation systems to reduce post-harvest losses and improve market access. We must also allocate adequate resources for research and development to improve crop yields, enhance climate resilience, and promote sustainable farming practices to foster ecosystem restoration.
Your Excellency, allow me truly say that we are really honored by your presence in this meeting to come and grace this first ever Financing Agriculture Sustainability Conference. This conference has brought together actors in the agricultural sector to engage on financing the sector and also on the appropriate models of funding agricultural activities. They will have landscape conversations, bring out challenges that will inform subsequent discussions with financing solution providers and beneficiaries. This will include designing financing solutions to ensure relevance to the wide range of beneficiaries and de-risking approaches for injecting capital, such as blended financing. The outcomes of this conference are expected to be a validated resource for the government and the private sector to enable design, planning for resourcing initiatives in the agriculture sector. The conference will also propose actionable areas on how to improve agricultural financing, on improved policy environment to grow agricultural sector investment and financing and alignment between the sector needs and public and private sector solutions. We appreciate the partnership between my ministry and the private sector in making this conference a success.